We're talking about rethinking oral skills and analysis through popular music and culture. Please welcome Ed and Tobias.
Thanks so much. So what we're going to be thinking through today is oral skills and analysis in the context of popular music and popular culture. And the reason why I include popular culture in this as well is that often we think about popular music as content to put into the classroom and forget that it exists in a culture outside of the classroom. So I want us to keep reminding ourselves that it's not just about the content, it's about the cultural context in which that music exists and what the ramifications are when we shift that context into a classroom. And if we think about the ways that people engage with popular music through popular culture, we could think of all those forms of engagement as opportunities for people to learn, musical learning contexts. And so if we think about oral skills and analysis, we might have a sense of, well, if people are engaging in popular music in these ways, what does that mean in terms of the way that they are engaging in analysis and the ways they are using oral skills? What does that mean for us as music teachers? So in other words, what I'm trying to do is look towards popular culture to inform how we address popular music and in turn rethink the ways that we're approaching analysis and oral skills. And I don't mean that to say we should no longer address oral skills and analysis the way that we traditionally have in schools. Perhaps that we just broaden to include other ways of thinking through analysis and oral skills. So since I'm using the terms, let's think through what some of these things mean. So there will be a couple of questions that pop up on the slide. I'm going to ask that you chat up whoever's next to you to answer those questions. You're only going to get a very short amount of time. It's just to get some conversation started. And when you hear the music, that's your cue to go to the next question. So first, when you see the term oral skills or hear those words uttered, what does that mean to you? What do you think about? So go ahead and chat up the person next to you. So what oral skills do you as music educators use on a daily basis? And now what oral skills might your students use throughout your music program? So keep all that in mind. It was interesting as I was listening, try to listen out across, and there were a lot of smiles and laughing and also these feelings of angst and memories that were really interesting to listen to and observe. So we're going to shift over to, I'm using the term analysis, but we more often hear people discussing music theory in school music programs. So when you hear the term music theory or analysis or see those words printed, what comes to mind? So go ahead and chat about that. So what types of analysis do you as music educators use on a daily basis? And what types of analysis might your students use throughout your music program? So again, we'll bring it back. I want you to think through everything that you chatted about as we're moving through the rest of this presentation and as we have some dialogue about this, because it's not the case that you wouldn't use any of that in the context of popular music and popular culture. A lot of it could be quite useful. However, we might expand beyond it when we look to the ways that people are engaging with popular music and thinking through how we might address it in our classrooms. So we're going to think through musical engagement that occurs in popular culture, and as you're seeing different examples, you might ask yourself, okay, so the ways that I engage in oral skills and analysis, to what extent do those link up with this, or how might those work, and how might my students leverage some of these oral skills and analysis that I'm seeing examples here, and how does that connect with maybe what my curriculum looks like? So it'll be interesting for you to think through that. So our first example of a way of engaging in popular music is what I used to call this being musical detectives until I found out that there actually is a job called forensic musicology, which is really interesting. It's like the CSI of musicologists. And I think it's fascinating that you see a lot of these people who work in Hollywood or LA where they're tracking down whether music has been stolen or not, and there's a lot of copyright and legal ramifications about it. But I think it's an interesting way of engaging with music and one that we might have our students do. And I think you can find instances of this occurring in popular culture beyond just the job of it. And so we might have students and people might ask questions like, was a song stolen? How similar are two songs? What makes them different? Are they actually the same song? How does a cover version compare to the original? How does a performance compare to the album version? So some of these are aesthetic questions, some of them are legal questions. And what really got me thinking about this was this meme that I found a couple of years back that people were calling the Timbaland Steals Music meme. Timbaland being first the producer, then he was rapping a bit too. And it started off with Nelly Furtado's Do It that he produced. So we're going to listen to an example of that to provide some context for what I'm talking about. So here's a little bit of Do It.
To rap off the top. Yeah, 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 yeah.
get the idea. This is a YouTube video that I found, and it was titled "Producer Timbaland Rips Song from Finnish Musician." And here's the video. So my point in showing this to you is not for us to come to some concrete decision about whether or not this occurred, but the idea that here's someone who's spending their time going through all these processes to try to discover whether or not these songs were the same, using technology as a tool, using selective EQ, mixing things together and really investigating it. And the thing that I found fascinating was it wasn't just this one person, that there were people all over the internet engaging in this process, engaging in this kind of collective musicology where they were trying to figure this out, and then they started trying to find other instances of it. And so if you want, you could find these YouTube comments keep going on. This is years back. And you'll find many, many discussions about, did Timbaland steal this music? Is he clearing the rights? Are these people receiving royalties? Does it just happen to sound very similar? But the key here is that people are trying to figure out these questions and using a lot of aural skills and analysis to do so. And this isn't just one instance. This happens, you can constantly find examples of this. A more recent version is whether Katy Perry copied Sarah Bareilles. So here's an example from Fused Television, which is online. You can find copies of this as well. And again, these are not just professionals asking these questions. It's going on. People are engaging in these kinds of conversations, providing their perspectives, listening across, acting as musical detectives, acting as musicologists. And engaging in similar techniques is what we saw before. So many of you might have seen the phenomenon of mashups that's been going on for years. So often it's an aesthetic practice. It's a way of people creating music through juxtaposing two different pieces or more than two different pieces. Here's someone who created a mashup, but more from an analytical perspective. So it's not necessarily artfully done. It's just, let me juxtapose these two pieces to see what happens. So take a listen to this. So we can begin to ask questions of, well, are they the same? Are they similar? What's going on here? It's that process of trying to figure out and using aural skills and analysis to answer these questions. All of this is being done without any kind of standard notation. This is not that standard notation is not important, but it's an aural skills practice and an analytical process that's very sound-based and in some cases technology-based. But when people do find these relationships and find similarities, they do begin to do creative things with them. So here is one of many examples of someone who heard similarities and said, what happens if we put these together? And the other thing that I'll say about this is often when we're looking in popular culture at the way that people label things, they use the term mashup in a very loose way sometimes, where they might be talking about a medley where the two different pieces are going back and forth, and sometimes where they're being juxtaposed. So I'm just going to use the terminology as it's appearing in popular culture. So here is an excerpt of this Brave Roar mashup.
Say what you want to say and let the words fall out.
So think through what that might involve. What does it take for someone to be able to, A, hear the relationships between the two songs, connect across them, and then artfully and skillfully create a new kind of music with them? And how are we addressing that practice, and how are we addressing the aural skills and analysis that are involved in that way of being musical, which is becoming fairly common in a contemporary society? And the other thing that I think is really interesting about this is here is an instance where aural skills and analysis are very meaningful to people. It's not that they're not meaningful in our classrooms, but this didn't come out of an assignment. This came out of someone just engaging in popular music and needing aural skills and analysis in order to get done what they needed to get done. So we're going to take a little shift outside of this comparison of, or trying to figure out whether something was stolen or not, and think through other forms of listening critique. And in this case, thinking through produced and live versions of music. So we're going to continue with the theme of roar for a moment and listen to the recorded version from the Prism album and then a live version from the iHeartRadio Music Festival in 2013. And as you're hearing both versions, just think through, when you hear both, what's missing from one or the other, from your perspective, what might be gained in one version over the other, what types of interpretations did the person engage with, as in this case, Katy Perry, and then what are your evaluations of these various performances? So here's the recorded version first.
I used to bite my tongue and hold my breath, scared to rock the boat and make a mess. So I said quietly, agreed politely. I guess that I forgot I had a choice. I let you push me past the breaking point. I stood for nothing, so I fell for everything. You held me down, but I got up, already brushing off the dust. You hear my voice, you hear that sound, like thunder gonna shake the ground. You held me down, but I got up. Get ready, 'cause I've had enough. I see it all, I see it now. I got the eye of the tiger, fire, dancing through the fire. 'Cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear me roar louder, louder than a lion. 'Cause I am a champion, and you're gonna hear me roar.
Now the live version.
Come on, people! I used to bite my tongue and hold my breath, scared to rock the boat and make a mess. So I said quietly, agreed politely. I guess that I forgot I had a choice. Let you push me past the breaking point. I stood for nothing, so I fell for everything. You held me down, but I got up, already brushing off the dust. Hear my voice, hear that sound, like thunder gonna shake the ground. You held me down, I got up. Get ready, 'cause it's hot enough. See it all, see it now. I got the eye of the tiger,
So if I were in the classroom, I would obviously go back and forth more. We might have students working in groups, listening over and over again, perhaps using some graphic organizers, listening maps, things of that sort. Since we're pressed for time, I'm just going to have you just quickly chat about some of your observations between those two. So go ahead and chat it up. So since we're pressed for time, let's just try to bring it back for a moment. And does anyone want to share some things that they observed? I should have used good pedagogy and had a nonverbal cue before we began this exercise. But any observations or thoughts?
I just think that when the kids listen to live, they don't get that it's live. I mean, they get that it's live, but they don't. When they hear like the not polished sound of it, they get annoyed and they don't think it's as good, you know. And they don't get like when a sound is recorded differently, it doesn't sound good to them, and therefore it's wrong, and it's not good.
Interesting. And then it raises questions of what constitutes goodness in this context. And so we don't really need to go into all the details, but just as you're thinking through what you discussed and thinking through the possibilities of recorded music and live music, what it introduces in terms of analysis, particularly when we tend to focus on, I heard many of you speaking about, well, Roman numeral analysis and things of that sort. Other ways of analyzing and making sense of music when we're thinking through it sonically, particularly when we introduce recording and production and all the various decisions that are made in productions, and to what extent are we addressing those in our classrooms, in our ensembles, the notion of recorded sound. We might also look at other examples, so I'm going to shift away from the music we've been listening to and move into I'm Yours by Jason Mraz, and we're going to listen to 3 different versions. The first one is a live version. The second one is the version on his album, and then the last one is the group Nota, which was an a cappella group from the Sing-Off from several seasons ago. And similarly, we're just going to listen through, again, we would probably use graphic organizers and have a lot more opportunity to hear the full pieces, but just as an exercise, we'll go through this and see what you think. So here's the live version first.
Done me and you bet I felt it. I tried to be chill, but you're so hot that I melted. I fell right through the cracks, and now I'm trying to get back. Before the cool done run out, I'll be giving it my bestest, and nothing's gonna stop me but divine intervention. I reckon it's again my turn to win some or learn some, but I won't hesitate no more, no more. It cannot wait. I'm yours. Yeah, you best to believe I'm yours, yours and yours alone. Well, open up your mind.
So I'm just going to pause it there for sake of time. Let's now flip over to the album version. When the album version's finished, I'll have you just talk across what you observed, what you listened to, and then to kind of trigger the next thing, I'll just play the next clip after that. So here's the album version.
Well, you done me and you bet I felt it. I tried to be chill, but you're so hot that I melted. I fell right through the cracks. Now I'm trying to get back. Before the cool done run out, I'll be giving it my bestest, and nothing's gonna stop me but divine intervention. I reckon it's again my turn to win some or learn some, but I won't hesitate no more, no more. It cannot wait. I'm yours. Well, open up your mind and see like me. Open up your plans and damn, you're free. I look into your heart and you'll find love, 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 love.
So have a quick conversation with whoever's nearby.
You bet I felt it. Tried to be chill, you so hot that I felt it. I fell right through the cracks, and now I'm trying to get back. Before the cool done run out, I'm giving it my bestest. Nothing's gonna stop me but divine intervention. I reckon it's again my turn to win some or learn some, but I won't hesitate no more, no more. I cannot wait. I'm yours.
love, 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 love. So I won't hesitate no more, no more. I cannot wait. Ay, que yo te doy el cielo y la luna. Ay, nena, como tú no hay ninguna, como dice mi canción. Oh.
So go ahead and have a conversation about that. So if we could bring it back for a moment.
I hear you.
And I'd love to continue the conversation more because it's interesting hearing what people are listening to. So yeah, go ahead.
Is there a way for you to make the video either full screen or bigger?
I can't because it's embedded in it right now. But yeah, there are all kinds of different things going on, and if you find it, you could probably find it on YouTube if you were to do a search for it, if they haven't taken it off by now. But I wonder if you think about what are the types of things that you were analyzing or the types of things that you were listening to. Perhaps you were addressing issues of performance. Perhaps you went into the issues of production in the album version, or the stylistic attributes in terms of the different versions. What genres or styles were they reminiscent of? How they interpreted the different versions, and maybe you were focusing on particular musical elements. The idea here is that if we're listening across and we're analyzing music from a sonic perspective, particularly when there's different versions of it, it opens up a broad world of ways of thinking through that music. Particularly, again, when we look at the same song in different ways, in different versions. And if you think about, again, going back to the musical engagement, what types of analysis and aural skills were involved in Nota's version of, okay, how do we arrange this? How do we orchestrate this? How do we adapt it for a different style? How do we recontextualize this piece? To what extent are we providing our students opportunities to do those types of things? And to what extent are we helping them develop the aural skills and analysis that are involved in those processes? And when we think through how do these circulate in popular culture, we do find people commenting on these things, as I mentioned before. So for instance, if you were to go to the YouTube version of I'm Yours, at least when I looked at it, you found all kinds of comments. And if you can't see it, the first one says, wow, Nota, you guys are so talented. I don't like the original song, but when you sang it, I loved it. Or, what is the name of the song from 334 to 340? I don't think it has a name. I think it's just a bebop horns arrangement. Indeed, it's our natural flavor in it. It is what the majority of the Puerto Ricans do every time they listen to salsa or in that particular mood. It's just arrangements and sound. So again, these are ways that people engage with music. We could sit through and critique the various things that people are saying, but I think the larger piece for us to think through is people do this. To what extent do we help our students do this? To what extent are we helping them develop the sophisticated aural skills and analysis and ability to articulate themselves to engage in these processes? We can learn a lot from looking at YouTube comments, and I think it says something about music education in contemporary society, about to what extent are we helping people do this, and what is this reflective of in our programs? So we're going to shift into a different realm now and think more in terms of how are students learning music and performing music, and we'll just stick with I'm Yours for this segment. And we might think about, okay, in school or private lessons, what are the typical ways that students are learning music? And for many people, if they wanted to learn I'm Yours, as a teacher, we might give them some sheet music and say, here's I'm Yours, you can learn I'm Yours this way. And certainly there are aural skills involved in that, whether they are playing it correctly, they might be analyzing the piece to some extent, but this is a pretty standard approach. Some students might be learning I'm Yours by going online and looking up tabs, and they may find there are many, many different tabs. Perhaps they're using some aural skills in identifying which tab sounds similar to the original and which are correct, which are incorrect, or what does even correct or incorrect mean in this context? But we might think about where are young people learning music and using aural skills besides the music classroom, and how are they learning music and using aural skills outside the classroom. So we're going to listen and observe a YouTube video, again, of some young men outside a school. And the title of this video clip is I'm Yours, Chillin' After School. And we might think through what aspects of music are they able to identify and address in this context where they're just hanging out after school and working through this music, and there's not necessarily a teacher involved in the process. So listen, observe, and let's have a conversation about it.
Let me get a Photoshop to be able to face on it. 5, 6, 7, 8. Stop playing. Oh, go. No, not that one. Play I'm Yours. You have to be on a shoulder like this when we're singing. Play I'm Yours. Come on, man. Francis, too. Play I'm Yours. No, you had the first part. Come on, dude. No. I don't know the lyrics to it, though. I'm Yours. Do I'm Yours. Do I'm Yours. Come on, dude. Yeah, let's sing to it. Keep that tempo. We'll come in on the second part. Don't break. Oh, you landed on me and you bet I felt it. I tried to be chill, it's just so hot that I melted. I fell right through the cracks. Now I'm trying to get back. Oh, the cool down now. We need a bass. Nothing's gonna stop. I'm back into that shit. I can just get me to win some or learn some.
So again, we could go on. There's definitely education going on. There's collaboration going on. There's teaching going on. And a whole lot of oral skills and analysis are taking place in this process where they didn't say, let's do an oral skills exercise or let's do analysis. They said, let's jam and let's play I'm Yours. So as you're thinking about what you heard, you might, and these are just small examples, they were thinking through the chord progression. They were thinking through the strumming patterns. They were addressing issues of tempo. They were trying to figure out some vocal intonation issues as they were going through. They were thinking through balance. We need more bass and things of that sort. So again, in part of this popular culture engagement, there's analysis and oral skills taking place. So again, I would encourage us to ask, to what extent are we allowing for these opportunities in our classrooms? And to what extent are we helping students develop these types of skills so that they can do this at a very high level? And this idea of covering popular songs is exploding. I mean, this is nothing new. We know that people have been covering songs forever, but YouTube and online mechanisms allow us to learn more about how are people doing this. And we see people doing this in many different contexts, often with guitar, where they're sharing the chords, chamber groups, drums, saxophones, sometimes improvising over it, using technologies. Many people learning the music without any sheet music. They're learning it by ear. And even engaging as music teachers to others by creating tutorials, such as this one here.
Today I'm going to show you to play Jason Mraz, I'm Yours. It's really easy, it's just 4 chords. The first chord's B, which is that. And then
and you can see some of the conversations on the side about this particular video that I find interesting as well. So here we have what we might consider a multimodal type of tutorial. And again, think about what went into doing this. Have this person have to learn this. Think about these conversations over here about strumming patterns. So again, to what extent are we providing our students opportunities to create tutorials and what is involved in that process, and then to evaluate tutorials? So if you went online, for instance, and said, I'm Yours tutorials, you will find many versions of them. They exist on a continuum of accuracy and quality, and to what extent are our students able to evaluate and find what are the most useful, what are the best quality, and what does that even mean? What are the skills involved in that process? And so finally, I'm going to shift over to this idea of engaging with diverse styles and genres, and thinking through to what extent in our music theory, ways of thinking about music theory, music analysis, oral skills, are we addressing the notion of genre, the notion of style in the context of analysis? So for instance, if we were to have our students think about music, to what extent can they identify stylistic aspects of musical genres? So if you played them, let's say, reggaeton, can they identify these are the things that make reggaeton reggaeton? Or to what extent is a song or work representative of a particular genre? So if I say, I want you to explore reggaeton, I'm going to play you this example by Daddy Yankee. Is this reggaeton or not? Why? And I probably wouldn't do that in a school context because that would be very inappropriate. but that's what just came to mind all of a sudden. How might one arrange an existing song or work for a different genre? So think back to the I'm Yours. You have the original version of it. I want to turn this into this type of genre. Do our students have the skills and ability to do that? They probably have the desire to do it. Are we providing them those opportunities? And then how might one create an original song or work specific to a particular genre or a mixture genre? So if we provide students opportunities to work in groups and they say, I want to create a death metal piece, do they even have the knowledge of death metal to do that? Do they know what it sounds like? Do they have the skills to do that? And are we helping them do that? So an example of some of this that happens online, I'm going to go to Dave Dave's YouTube channel. Dave Dave's made this video where he creates an original song and he tells you a little bit about this, and then he takes that song and moves it through multiple genres. And I think it's just an example of oral skills and analysis involved in a process where he does it very well. So here's Dave Dave's, and here's him explaining his project.
Hey everybody, I need your help. I need you guys to help me produce this song I've been working on. I have lyrics, but I have no music. The song's pretty much about this girl I met, and I really started to like her, and then I found out that she has a boyfriend. But this boyfriend of hers is, clearly not the right guy for her. So the song is called I'm Better Than Your Boyfriend.
So he's going to show us I'm Better Than Your Boyfriend and a couple different versions of it.
You're going to have to check out these 5 different versions of the song.
So think about what is involved in being able to do something like this.
I see her a few times a week. She sees me accidentally, and I find words that don't make sense. She finds ways to forget, and she acts like she doesn't have a clue. Why do you think I'm standing next to you? If only you gave me a chance. I'm sorry, I've already got a man. She's all I need. And he's gotta leave.
Let's take the time and speed it up so here's the next version.
I see her a few times a week. She sees me accidentally, and I find words that don't make sense. She finds ways to forget. She acts like she doesn't have a clue. Why do you think I'm standing next to you? If only you gave me that one chance. And that's when she said, I've already got a man. She's all I need. I see her a few times a week. She sees me accidentally, and I find words that don't make sense. She finds ways to forget. She acts like she doesn't have a clue. Why do you think I'm standing next to you? If only you gave me one chance. And that's when she said, I've already got a man. She's all I need. He's got a
So the idea is, to what extent do our students have the musical understanding and flexibility to work across multiple genres? So if you took a piece that you either did last year or you're doing this year and said, okay, here's our choir piece, band piece, orchestra piece, or a piece that we're doing in general music class, here's the style it is originally, let's prepare it, let's work with it, and now create it in 3 different versions. Do they have the capacity to do that, and what's involved in that process? Or can they take a piece that they like and do the same process? So these are just things to think about in terms of what goes into it and how are we helping students do this. So just to recap, we're thinking through aural skills and analysis in the context of popular culture and musical engagement, and then flipping it into music programs and what that might take from us. And we've looked through engaging as forensic musicologists by analyzing and connecting across music, analyzing and discussing both live and recorded music and really thinking through those production aspects, responding to music through critique, feedback, and commentary, learning and performing music by ear, and evaluating and creating music tutorials, and engaging with diverse stylistic attributes. So hopefully that gives you just a couple of things to try out this year to expand the way that you're addressing analysis and aural skills in your programs. So I hope that gives you some things to think about. Thanks. I'm not sure if we have time for questions or not. About 5 minutes. Yeah.
So Evan, one of the things that I've noticed is that we have a general tendency in society to privilege explicit knowledge over tacit knowledge, meaning that if you can do it with your body and engage in it, it's cool. But unless you really can know exactly what you're doing and write about it and explain it, then you're not really doing it. And I've run across a troubling tendency from like the secondary general students to also value that explicit over the tacit. Like that group of kids chilling after school.
Right.
Like if I invited them into my music class, I feel like they still don't really see themselves as like musicians or people with things to offer because they don't know what they're doing, maybe can't put it into words, can't use school words to explain it. Can you talk about that?
Sure. So one of the things that this goes back to the things that you were discussing with Lucy Green, for instance. So I think about, often when we talk about scaffolding, my students tend to think about scaffolding in terms of I'm helping them complete something or I'm helping them move through the process. And I remind them that when we're scaffolding through these experiences, and I'm not sure this will address exactly what you're talking about, but in that process of scaffolding and asking students questions and getting them to, in some cases, make explicit what they're doing tacitly. So I'm doing this. I found this example of these two songs that work well together. And when you go in and you highlight that example or ask them, what are you doing right now? It kind of brings to the surface some of the things that they're doing that they might not think about. And part of the reason for that is because the intent of them is not on learning something at that moment or analyzing. The intent is to create a mashup or to learn this piece. So if we take that intent and then layer on top of it some scaffolding to kind of bring up the things that are already emerging and bring it to their attention, I think it helps with that. In terms of the privileging, I think it's just, I don't know, I think that's a longer process in terms of what we value, what we don't value, and then layering on, so people have already talked about the teacher evaluations here, and I know that's across the country where administrators are looking for certain things and looking for critical thinking and looking for things that are quantifiable and things of that sort. So how do we make sense of that in relation to popular culture engagement? I think there's a lot to address through that. So I don't know if I'm answering it exactly, but I think scaffolding plays a key role in that.
What you said, graphic organizers, you used a lot of graphic organizers before you, I think it was the Katy Perry.
Sure, in terms of listening pedagogy, Venn diagrams, concept maps, T-charts. I mean, you can go online and look up graphic organizers. Venn diagrams look nicely. I've used concept maps a lot. Listening maps. I don't know, any of you, the New York Times, I thought it was really funny. The New York Times had this, they focused on someone who was drawing pictures to fish or analyzing fish. And as I was looking at it with some friends of mine, I said, oh, look, they've discovered listening maps. This is so interesting. They made a big thing about this on the New York Times. And so I think any way to visualize, perhaps standard notation, but any way that they're visualizing some of the relationships that they're hearing could be in the various forms of graphic organizers. And language arts teachers are very big into this, so it's a good connection to that part of the school.
It's actually a piece of software, and unfortunately I can't remember the name of it, but it looks at, I guess you'd say, it looks at the forensic makeup of different songs, and then arranges them in various ways. And so, for example, I think it did Bohemian Rhapsody, and it went through Bohemian Rhapsody and looked at the different, I guess, textures.
All the samples, were you looking in colored blocks?
Yeah.
Okay, so from my understanding, I think it's using data from EchoNest. So if you look up EchoNest, it's the company that drives. I might not have this all correct, but I know that a lot of companies use their data. they analyze tons of music. So something like the reason why a company, let's say like Pandora, and I don't know if I'm factually correct about this, but the companies that are using algorithms to find music that you like, if you like this, are drawing on this data from Echo Nest. And I think Spotify actually bought Echo Nest. So what a lot of people have done is they've created it's open. So there are all these various APIs. There are these various ways that you can link into their data and do things. So people have created these web-based applications where you can do something like upload a piece of music, and it will analyze through all the data, and then you can see everything that's going on in the music visually, and then play around with it. So explore Echo Nest and see what you can find. It's pretty interesting.
Are you familiar with Peter Gabriel's "Play with My Music"?
Yeah. So I think is that the Alex Rusman is doing this MOOC? Yeah. So yeah, this "Play with Your Music" or "Play with My Music," massive open online course. Alex Ruthman at NYU is heavily involved in this, and I think Peter Gabriel provided the stems to his music for people to mix. So, right, so if you're thinking about balance issues and things of that sort, this notion of playing with your music, not just playing music, they have this whole course that they're doing it. But it's this idea of that when you have the stems or the parts of the recordings available outside of the composite recording, how do you then mix it? And there are these web interfaces that allow that. But if you don't have access to that, I have had my students at Arizona State go to indabamusic.com, where they have remixing contests, and they have all these stems available through the contests, and they have often Creative Commons licensing, which allows you to do different things with it. So you can download those stems and begin to explore with mixing and balancing and all these types of things that we tend to often marginalize in our programs. This idea of here's these recorded musics, how do you mix them and how do you balance them, and you're drawing from recordings. There's nothing stopping from any of us taking our ensembles. Well, there may be copyright violations involved in it, so I think you would have to think through fair use and how that works exactly. So I'm putting that disclaimer on it. But from an educational purpose, imagine what would happen if you took, let's say, a band piece, had each student record their parts separately so that you're basically creating stems, and then figure out what's the balance like in Pro Tools or GarageBand or something like that. And now you're having them engage in something that happens in popular culture, and think about the aural skills and analysis that are involved in that. So I think this idea of playing with your music is part of contemporary society and something we should really take seriously. All right, thank you very much.